Alan Wake, developed by Remedy Entertainment and originally published by Microsoft Game Studios, making it originally Xbox 360 exclusive when it came out in 2010, but nowadays has a remaster that came out in 2021 that came out on basically every major platform. But for this video, I'm playing the original PC port that came out in 2012 rather than the remaster. Playing the original, since people said the change between the original and the remaster kind of negligible, and also the fact that the product placement original is so goofy and in your face that oh jeez. I wasn't exactly sure what genre to really classify Alan Wake was while playing it, so I'll just go by developers who claim that Alan Wake is the mind of a psychological thriller with the body of a cinematic action game, because honestly, I wasn't really sure what to call it. Couldn't call it action horror, and I couldn't call it survival horror. The devs say it does not squarely fit in survival horror anyway. The premise: the titular main character, Alan Wake, goes to Bright Falls on vacation because he has writer's block, and while there with his wife Alice, she ends up going missing, and now the world is for some reason following this manuscript that Alan supposedly wrote but doesn't remember. And there's this entity called Dark Presence that's not only trying to prevent Alan from leaving, but is trying to use him because apparently the manuscript written is giving it power. But once again, he doesn't remember how he even came to be, considering he didn't write it. Or did he? The Dark Presence fears the light, so it's up to Alan to use every sort of light fixture possible, with the main one being a flashlight, in order to combat the Dark Presence and try to make this manuscript to an end, if there even is an ending to the manuscript. One thing I really didn't expect from this game was the fact that it's broken up into these segments where you have Alan talking to the characters during the day and everything, and then the night sections where trying to go against the Dark Presence. I thought it would just be essentially one long night, like usually what I try to see from horror games. So I do like the fact that you get plenty of time to interact with the citizens of Bright Falls, and there's so much dialogue with them. Like, you can just keep walking back to them and they'll just keep having stuff to say for minutes. It won't be anything grand, but the fact that there's so much dialogue they recorded and wrote is freaking nuts, and I do like that, and how goofy it is. Hell, there's one point where freaking Alan's best friend Barry tells him to go ahead, but you can still just stand there and hear him having dialogue as he's talking to people on the phone for a few more minutes. So when they tell you to go, you can still enjoy more dialogue with that, and I just really like how it makes the town kind of more interesting. And I can't lie, I didn't think my favorite character in this game was going to be Barry of all people, but I just like his character, and I like the fact that he does relatively fast come to believe Alan's story of what exactly is going on in the town, and is freaking very helpful. You can also, throughout the journey, find pages of the manuscript, and this is a thing that honestly confuses me, because when it comes to pages of manuscript, I was thinking, oh, which is manuscript, that means Alan will now have more information on future events going on and be prepared. Except, no, the manuscripts are either there to basically tell you certain information that they don't show you for the side characters, which is kind of understandable. Other times, it's there to explain something that honestly the main story should have just showed but didn't. And then there are times where it will tell you future events, but the events will play out exactly as it's written, so I'm not even sure why they even tell the player the information way before they were relevant or anything. I was thinking, like, since the whole story is about the manuscript, I was thinking that means that Alan is reading a manuscript and he comes across it, because you get so many freaking pages of it, but no, the manuscript pages you find in gameplay are just for the players solely, and that's it. So I was like, why have this whole story about trying to get this manuscript and everything, but it feels like it basically does nothing for Alan unless it's a very specific page that he needs for the story. But when it comes to all the other pages, you might as well just throw them out one way, because he's not interested in them at all because he doesn't acknowledge them and other characters do. There's only one moment where I saw a side character actually interact with the manuscript and question it and how it was predicting the future, but that's it. I'm surprised Alan himself doesn't really do that considering the opportunity, but no, future events that are written will happen the way they're written. It's just pretty much spoiling the player what's going to happen within like the next 20 minutes. I also feel like because some of the manuscripts are there to explain story details the actual main narrative doesn't mention, not anything super major by the way, just small bits of information, it kind of feels more like a band-aid of the writers may have forgotten to elaborate on certain things, so they use the manuscript in order to do that, because sometimes they say it right before it happens or right after it happens, so it's kind of like a band-aid of anything else, since the characters don't really acknowledge what's being said on them and everything. And with how many manuscripts there are in the game, you're just constantly pausing to have Alan read these manuscripts out loud, and it makes me wish he would have just read them in gameplay, because there aren't many moments where it's just dead quiet, nothing else going on. You're gonna have this many manuscripts, I make the player pause and then have to wait for Alan to read it just to go through it. It makes me wonder how much more different my experience would be if I just never bothered to actually look at any of the manuscripts and just let the story play out and just had certain details that just don't really get elaborated on as a result. It also took me a bit to realize that at certain points you can find these TVs, and the TV I thought, oh, it was showing Alan Wake acting all weird because he's narrating and talking through it. And then I look close and realize, oh wait, that's the actual actor conveniently being recorded for those sections. And I'm like, okay, the way they incorporate the actor in certain segments, try to make things more trippy, is freaking great. I do enjoy that a lot. What I don't care for is when the TVs start playing Night Springs, because it's such a long segment that honestly, I don't really find Night Springs interesting enough to stand there around for those long. There's just several things in the game that I already mentioned how characters give a lot of dialogue, optional dialogue, but there's also optional things on Night Springs. You have the TVs where a different version of Alan is talking to Alan himself for some reason, or you also the fact that some of the radios have this radio show, which I think is the most interesting little pit stop, because I just find a radio host just really good at being a radio host. So those I like, but when it comes to the one with Night Springs, I watched the first episode of that, and then I immediately skipped every other thing afterwards, because honestly, I just couldn't be bothered to watch the Night Springs. Overall, I do enjoy the narrative of Alan Wake. It's just I wish the manuscripts, gameplay-wise, played more of a factor, considering the fact of you're picking up so many of them, but it feels like they exist in a separate void from anything else, since early on, Alan will constantly mention how, oh, I don't have the manuscript, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what's being talked about, and it's like, am I picking up these pages for nothing? Hello, sir? And there are points where he mentions it's with the manuscript, something is taking the manuscript from him, and it's like, didn't you say you don't even have any of them? But apparently now we're acknowledging some of the manuscripts he put up in gameplay. He now actually has on his person, there's like, meanwhile, the manuscripts don't really get brought up at all. Only time I can remember a side character bring up a manuscript was one that Alan himself did not have yet, so it was something reading something that player didn't know about, and then read it soon afterwards. It's like I wish the manuscript's information was more related to the story, because of the fact of the kind of advantage that Alan has, or would have, if he now knows a future event coming, can prepare for it, but instead it plays out exactly how it says, which means he doesn't really know about the event coming up. So why have so many manuscripts in gameplay? It becomes so annoying to have to keep collecting and then pausing in order to freaking go through. Now for the gameplay with Alan Wake being a third-person shooter, the main catch being that the Taken are protected by darkness, So in order to make them vulnerable, you have to use a source of light, with your main one being a flashlight. And by goodness, this flashlight drains battery like crazy. I'm always surprised Energizer even put their name to this thing, because it honestly makes their flashlight and batteries look worse. But that's your main quirk when it comes to gameplay, and there are other devices you can use in order to reveal the Taken, whether it be massive light sources, or even like bigger industrial flashlights as well, or even the fact that you have these checkpoints that are essentially massive street lights that will despawn all enemies. And with the fact that because these street lights are your main checkpoint, it also means that if there's one nearby, you can just choose to try and run towards it rather than actually fight the Taken and just immediately despawn them and heal yourself up. You also have limited stamina in this game, with the only way you can tell essentially being by how Alan is moving. And you have the ability to dodge, and if you actually dodge close to an enemy attack, then you get a slow-mo cinematic view. This does nothing to help you in actual gameplay, and honestly, the slow motion gets very annoying very fast. Especially since, for some reason, Alan Wake, the game, uses so much slow motion in this game. There's slow motion when enemies are introduced, there's slow motion to do a well-timed dodge, there's slow motion during some combat arenas. Hell, there's flares you can use in order to help reveal the Taken and push them back if they're too close to you. But if you're surrounded and then you use a flare, it will then do a slow motion spin around Alan for some reason. And I hate the abuse of slow motion. It's like the developers just discovered the future and just keep using it. Except I can't do that. I can't say that because Remedy Games also made Max Payne, which already used the bullet time feature, so they know slow motion. But geez, this game just abuses the hell out of the idea. There's one point where I'm trying to activate a generator for a light, and the game went slow motion as I was doing it, which threw me off the rhythm of turning it on and actually got me killed. It's like, can we stop with the abuse of slow motion in this game? It's not cinematic or anything, it's just effing annoying. And like I said earlier, getting a perfect dodge is just there to look fancy, and this game just does that a lot with the slow motion that honestly, when it comes to the main gameplay, like I said, about revealing the Taken in a light before attacking them, it's just so basic and just a standard third-person shooter. There's not much else going on. There are some segments where you get into a vehicle, but that's for a short bit. Even then, it's just reveal them with the car's headlights, run them over. There are, I can't even call them puzzles because they're so basic. Calling them puzzles is way too generous. So the main thing you're doing is just fighting the Taken, and the Taken don't really evolve in gameplay at all, and despite this cool mechanic of using a flashlight, using light in order to pretty much reveal these enemies, they don't really do much with the idea at all, aside from, oh, you shut them with a light and now you can shoot them. It feels like there's an underutilized idea to the point where, because the game's biggest emphasis is on narrative, finding manuscripts, finding Night Springs TVs, getting this TV with a weird Alan Wake talking and muttering to himself, it feels like the main focus of this was more so the narrative than anything else, to the point where I was questioning why they even made Alan Wake into a video game specifically. Like, so much of this video game aspect probably could be stripped away and turned into like an actual TV series, and it probably worked the same. Not hope that you have the segments with the live action actor on the TV acting all crazy. So like, I don't know, just nothing about the game specifically makes me think it benefits from being a game, because otherwise it's just a standard third-person shooter, and honestly, it kind of gets dull at a point. It's not the game not being that long. Just kind of gets boring doing the actual main gameplay because nothing much shake it up. It feels like way more effort was put into, oh, finding manuscripts, everything, which do sometimes gameplay-wise reveal information that could help the player out, but honestly, not by much, because telling me, oh, a Taken with this weapon's gonna come at me. Whoop-de-doo, the Taken all go down the same way possible. What weapon they have is basically moo, except for the fact of if they have a throwable object, because those are the most powerful beings in the entire game, I swear. But they don't really add much gameplay-wise, a bigger warning for the player, and it's more so just telling you, hey, here's a thing, look out for it, I guess, maybe not, Who knows? Doesn't really matter. Everything goes on the exact same way anyway, kind of thing. So it's just weird how most of the effort was put into Night Springs, put into these TVs with an Alan Wake muttering to himself, put into all these conversations, put into the radio show. It just feels like that's where the main focus of the game is. And I get it. Alan Wake, the character, is a writer, so I want to emphasize the narrative aspect, considering this is supposedly from a manuscript that he wrote but can't remember writing. So you want to get the narrative right and not look like a hack and look up your own butt or make your main character a writer and everything, a best-selling writer at that. But it feels like the gameplay was put as here's the most standard thing we could possibly do, and then move on, because honestly, it feels like the actual mechanics of the light are so basic and don't have much going on. It doesn't really evolve in the game. We later push deciding just throw more enemies and everything. Hell, because of the fact that the stamina exists, it means that points where you're supposed to run and rush because danger's all around you, you can honestly just jog anyway, because it can't take into account that you'll be running because eventually you'll tire out. So there are the point where I realized I'm just jog through all this danger, and I did, and it worked. All sense of urgency is gone. Hell, early on, I could have this one enemy early on before you can really fight properly. It's just standing there smack talking you, and I'm just standing there listening to it entirely, being like, is that gonna come after me? Is he gonna get closer? The answer is no. Hell, there's one segment early on where I didn't even do what the game said of going to a cabin. I just kind of stood there. And the game just automatically teleported me into the cabin, which is the only time the game does that. Other times, that actually got me killed. But it's just weird that early on, it made a bad first impression. Just let me do certain things I shouldn't, because it just moved me ahead anyway. Another thing I don't like is the previously on segments. Like, it would be great if the previously on segments existed when you resume your game. Like, you just came back, got a little reminder. That would be cool, because I've seen other games do that kind of thing to help remind the player the last time that happened. That would be cool. But instead, it's just used at the start of a chapter, since they're called episodes and treated as a TV show. More highlighting the point of, did you want to make a video game? I swear! But like, it would be cool if those previously on segments were when you resume your game and not just from playing the game normally. On top of the fact of when you end an episode, it just kind of sits there holding the episode number and it plays a song, and the songs are nice, but nothing else happens on the screen. It's like, do you want me just sit here and listen to this entire time? And once a song ends or you hit skip, it'll immediately jump into the next episode and give you the previously on segment for the thing you just did. I would have preferred it if the previously on was when you resume the game as a reminder, which it should be used as, and not just telling you things that just happened, considering you can't go back to the menu after finishing a chapter. So why even have the previously on segments? You also have the fact that at the end of every chapter, you lose all the weapons you have and restart from scratch. Or sometimes within the same chapter, you'll just lose all your weapons, everything. And sometimes they do have moments where I try to set certain settings. Other times, it's so pointless because either give you a weapon right off the bat again, or they'll give you a whole armor's worth of weapon right off the bat sometimes. And it's like, why? Why even have Alan lose all his weapons constantly? And it's actually addressed in the story that Alan keeps mentioning how every time he's losing his weapons. Or one time where it does make sense when they get taken away, but then they give it back to you, all your weapons soon after, except for my flashlight. They didn't give me back the high-powered flashlight I had, they just gave me back to a standard one. What the hell? So on top of the fact that the gameplay isn't just anything remarkable or anything noteworthy, it also keeps stripping you back to basics over and over and over. But that's all for the main game, because Alan Wake did get 2 pieces of DLC. They're referred to as special features. I see what you did there. You having fun with this. So when it comes to special features, honestly, they're better than the main game itself. They don't do anything too crazy, but the level design is more interesting, and also the fact of with the manuscripts, now collecting them will have like these words pop up on screen, and you can use your flashlight to reveal the words in order to manifest a thing for the manuscript. And you can use this for combat encounters, which not only makes it so you can use your environment to your advantage, but it also means that using stuff with the flare is way more riskier because you might accidentally activate all of the bonuses and create hell on earth around you. And just the environment has way more stuff going on that you can use against the Taken. Like, it's just more enjoyable. It's not anything great or mind-blowing, but it feels like what the main game should have had. Actually using the light mechanic more for the gameplay rather than just revealing the Taken and just being a standard third-person shooter, on top of the fact that the manuscripts are now what's causing these words to essentially appear in thin air and everything. And now you have segments, you got little platforming segments you gotta go through, and there's one little segment, and there's a rotating little device that, honestly, kind of was bland for the sole reason that the game's detection of fall damage is so bad that you'll take fall damage from things that don't make sense. And in this case, of fall damage because it'll suddenly kill you from a small drop. So, stuff like that. But it's like, it feels like the DLC takes more advantage of the light mechanic than the actual main game itself. It's just weird how, why wasn't this in the main game? This is better. It's not anything amazing, but hey, it's finally taking advantage of the game's strength and using it in a fun way. And it's like, I want more of this. I wish you did more of this, rather than the main game just being the most okay thing we could possibly get away with. The weird part is, the main game does have a segment where Alan does actually light up some words in order to manifest something, but it's done solely in a cutscene, not in gameplay, and the DLC now uses it in gameplay instead of cutscenes, and it's like, why couldn't we have that in the main game then? So you had the idea, but you didn't use it for some reason. Overall, Alan Wake is fine. It's okay. Like, yeah, it's mentioned the narrative being good, I do like the characters and Brightfalls, but when your main gameplay gets so boring to do, honestly, it just overpowers anything else going on top of so many missed opportunities in the main game that the DLC then tries to take advantage of, but at that point it's far too late, as the DLC is the shortest part of the game, as opposed to the main game is like 11 hours, and the DLC is like 2.5 hours or so, so it's like, could have just done more in the main game to get those ideas there, but no, instead the main game was just content with being a standard third-person shooter, but hey, and I got enemies of light. And I just really hate those freaking anime objects. Now it's blocking your way. What are you gonna do? Let me just spam flames over and over until it goes down, because for some reason these things have like so much HP. It's ridiculous and everything. So just this kind of thing that feels like it needed more in it. And I don't like the fact that American Nightmare actively calls out, oh, the Dark Presence had little imagination, because it feels more like a retroactive excuse to make up for the awkward design. I know it's also them addressing their own issue, but it's just kind of thing I don't like it when people do, when they try to make like some joke of, oh, there's a problem, let me immediately joke about it. It's like, it feels like you acknowledge the problem and you did nothing about it. Why are you doing this to me, kind of thing. So that said, the game is okay, and the best parts are the fact that you go around and find these little freaking, hey, here's his radio show, it gives you more information. Hey, sometimes the manuscripts give you information of people in the town and what they're doing at the certain events, but sometimes it feels like it's there to fill in gaps that the main narrative should have done. And also I don't like the fact that it just tells you future events, but without any shakeup or anything. It just sort of exists there. It's like, why not use that to have Alan take advantage of the information? Why have him just play it out in the exact way it's described? At that point, it's not any sort of gameplay benefit, it's just they're telling you what's going to happen in the story and everything. So the game is okay. Its strongest aspect is the narrative and the characters, which for the game's character being Alan Wake, a writer, makes sense, it should be. I just wish there was more as a game, to the point where it feels like I'm not even sure developers even wanted to make a game specifically. I feel like they want to make a show and everything would translate to a show just fine, aside from the aspect of having Alan Wake the in-game model compared to Alan Wake the actual real life prison actor and everything, you know. That one bit I feel like, yeah, that wouldn't really work as an actual show, but they could have went around that, you know. Anyway, that's all I got to say about Alan Wake. Alright then, good day.